Good morning to you. I'm Danilo Evangelista, and welcome to our tropical weather outlook for Saturday, June 1st, 2025. Let's start off by taking a look at what is going on in the world of tropics, not just here in the Atlantic and the Pacific. And there are currently no active storms in the globe right now. It is very quiet. The Atlantic is going to stay quiet for the next foreseeable future. The Westpac is currently quiet right now, although I think there might be some development there in the longer term. Not necessarily familiar with what's happening, but there might be something that goes on there, as well as the Eastern Pacific, which I'll show you in just a moment. But for now, nothing happening globally in the world of tropics, and obviously that is a good thing because things are nice and quiet and we can rest and relax and get ready for when things will become active. But in the Eastern Pacific, we probably will get more development. And I've been talking about this, and I've been saying that favorable conditions will remain in the Eastern Pacific at least till the end of the month. And I would not be surprised if we get another tropical system, or maybe even multiple, to develop in the Eastern Pacific before the month of June is over. And that is exactly what the National Hurricane Center is hinting at right now, at least with their latest tropical weather outlook. As of 5 a.m. Pacific time this morning, they have an area of interest south of Mexico and off the Central American coastline. And they say that an area of low pressure is forecast to develop early next week off the coast of Central America. Environmental conditions appear conducive for gradual development after that time, and a tropical depression could form by the middle of next week as the system moves west-northwestward off the coast of Central America and southern Mexico. And they give a chance of development at 60% chance within the next 7 days, so slightly higher than a coin flip that we might get another tropical system to develop in the Eastern Pacific. And I think, once again, it is very likely that it will happen. And if it does happen in time enough, it will be the earliest sixth named storm on record to occur in the Eastern Pacific, because for now we're up to 5. We just had Eric, that's the 5th named storm. If this develops, it'll be the F name in the Eastern Pacific, which I believe is Flossie. And if it does form in time, it will be the earliest we've ever gotten Flossie or any F name storm on record in the Eastern Pacific. And just goes to show how active the Eastern Pacific has been throughout this entire month so far. And the Atlantic, on the other hand, has just been absolutely inactive. And in fact, still, as of right now, no activity is expected over the next at least week. So all of the activity right now, at least in terms of our concern, is in the Eastern Pacific. Taking a look at sea surface temperature anomalies, you could see, though, in the MDR and across the Atlantic, it is warm. So even if we don't have activity right now, we probably will get pretty active once we get to the peak of the hurricane season. Most of our activity in the Atlantic occurs anyways during the peak, and we tend to get a lot more concentrated activity in the Eastern Pacific anyways, even though if you actually look at the sea surface temperatures in the Pacific, they are quite cool. We have this negative PMM signature, pretty much meaning that the tropical and subtropical Pacific is cooler than normal. And we don't have an El Nino out there, although we do have some warming that has occurred in the far Eastern Pacific. And I've seen some talk about maybe people believing that this might have contributed to allowing the Eastern Pacific to become very active over the last several weeks. But it is very interesting that we have a generally cooler than normal Pacific, especially if you compare that to the Atlantic. Yeah, we've had a record busy season in the Eastern Pacific thus far. The question will remain is, does it continue? And at least for me, as I've said before, most of our activity climatologically in the Atlantic happens once we get to August and September. So I'm inclined to believe, especially given the overall look of a warmer Atlantic versus a colder Pacific, that longer term, this string of activity we've had will probably not continue. And eventually, things are going to start getting active and ramping up. in the Atlantic basin. But for now, though, obviously, taking a look at the Nino 3.4, we've seen quite a bit of warming, at least over the last several days with the Nino 3.4, but overall, still remaining at neutral. And we're probably going to continue to remain at neutral for the rest of the year. And that'll especially have its effects on Pacific activity once we get to August and September. And in turn, that'll really help favor the Atlantic because just once again, going back to the MDR and the overall tropical Atlantic, it is warmer, and you would definitely think that that'll help contribute to lots of activity by the time we get to the peak of the hurricane season. And taking a look at the eastern Atlantic sea surface temperature anomalies right now, also above normal. So you put these two maps side by side, a cooler Pacific and a warmer Atlantic. We are definitely going to see activity ramp up very quickly in the coming weeks, even if things are quiet right now. And the latest SOI value still remaining positive, so at least on the El Nino front. And I don't really think I need to mention it anymore because it is pretty certain, in my opinion, right now that there is almost no chance that we will get an El Nino. And I think the SOI is just a reflection of that, been positive, and it is still steadily positive right now, at least over the past 30 days. The latest daily contribution is at positive 2 points. And as long as this remains positive, we are not going to see any sort of sign of El Nino emerging. And I don't think there's really a chance anyways, because it's June and we are not long away from July, so we're already into the hurricane season. And atmospherically right now, there is no sign of an El Nino. So I think we could completely write that off in terms of factors for this hurricane season. And just showing you the zonal wind anomalies in the Pacific, you see that we have, right now at least, a lot of these oranges appearing in the Pacific, especially in the eastern Pacific. That represents westerly zonal wind anomalies. And obviously, if we have westerlies in the low levels, that tends to help with tropical development and allowing for low pressures to close and develop and become tropical systems. And we have that in the short term in the Pacific right now. And that will continue for the next several days, probably once again lasting until the end of the month here in the Pacific. And obviously, because of that, we will get another named storm or two. But heading out into July, into the long range, you notice that we see large spots of these blues and these greens that show up on these zonal wind anomalies as we head into July that encompass a pretty large chunk of the Pacific. And that probably means that as we get into July, activity in the Pacific will probably begin to slow down. And as I said before, the record activity that we have in the Eastern Pacific right now will probably slow down. And as things become more unfavorable in the Pacific, we'll then probably have to begin to watch in the Atlantic as we get into next month, and especially as we get into the peak of the hurricane season. But for right now, obviously, taking a look at the next 7 days, at least on the GFS model, you can see that we will get development. We have something that gets going off the coast of Central America. Again, the strong westerlies here in the tropics allowing for consolidation of these low pressures, and obviously they consolidate and form and become tropical systems. And that is exactly what happens here on the GFS within the next few days. And we'll monitor this to see whether or not this stays off the coasts of Mexico and Central America, or if this ends up eventually tracking closer to the coast, especially given that we had Eric very recently here in Mexico. So it is obviously in our special interest to watch to see, does this develop and does this impact Mexico? And at least in the development aspect, you look at the GFS, and this probably will develop. And looking at the Euro ensembles too in the Pacific, you could see, just let this run really quickly all the way out. You could see that we do have a lot of the European ensembles. This is not the operational model like I showed you here. This is the operational model of the GFS. So this is what the main GFS outcome is. while this is the European ensembles, meaning variations of the model, and there are a lot of ensemble members. I'm pretty sure virtually all of them spinning up something in the Eastern Pacific. So at least over the next several weeks, things will probably be active, or at least not over the next several weeks, but at least the next week or so as we close out the month of June, things will continue to remain active in the Pacific. And as you can see throughout this entire run, which goes all the way out to 240 hours out, so the next 10 days, not just week, virtually nothing happens in the Atlantic. There are a few ensembles here in the subtropics, and maybe we might get some sort of small subtropical spin up that tries to occur. That happens from time to time, and we've had seasons in the past where our first storm has occurred from these quick non-tropical spin ups in the subtropics. And going back to the sea surface temperature anomalies, especially the subtropics in the western Atlantic and off the southeast coast, sea surface temperature anomalies are very warm. So maybe we'll get something like that. Maybe that's how we'll end up getting Andrea, our first named storm in the Atlantic. But in terms of deep tropical concern, all of it remains in the Eastern Pacific. And I could show you as well on the GFS operational out to the next week. Very interestingly, on the 60 run for today, there is a small low pressure that does develop off the southeast coast. And so we'll see if maybe that is there around this time, and if that does actually try to develop. But beyond that, in terms of any other solid signals here in the Atlantic, pretty much nothing. So once again, Eastern Pacific is where the activity is at right now, and the Atlantic for at least the next week as we close out the month of June and head into July. Things will continue to remain quiet, and then we'll have to see as we get into July, does the pattern start to change as trades return in the Pacific, meaning conditions will probably slowly become more unfavorable in the Pacific, and especially as we head into July, and then beyond that into August, will that eventually help set the stage for things to become more favorable in the Atlantic? We'll have to see how it all plays out. With that being said, I'm going to end it off for today's Tropical Weather Outlook video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like this video, comment your thoughts below, and subscribe to the channel if you are new and you want these videos, because I do upload them every single day. So if you are interested in content like this, I really recommend that you subscribe and turn on your notification bell so you can get videos the moment I upload them. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe. Peace, love, and kindness to you all. I will be with you again tomorrow.